Welcome to Greatest Scene Ever. I'm Professor Greg Smith, and over here, Professor Carlos Brennan joining us. And today, we're doing a special edition of our series. You might call it Greatest Scene Ever because we're picking some of the greatest of the greatest. So, Carlos, what's next? What's your second pick?
Well, my second choice for today is a very well-crafted light comedy. It's from director Rob Reiner. It's a story of true love, but set on all sides by danger. We've got a variety of very interesting characters. A giant, clever swordsman. We've got a drinking duel with a Sicilian. It stars Cary Elwes and House of Cards' Robin Wright in her first major film role. Right. It's from 1987. I grew up on this film. It's The Princess Bride.
Vicini, he can fuss.
Fuss. Think you like to scream at us?
Probably he means no harm.
He's really very short on charm.
You have a great gift for rhyme.
Yes. Some of the time.
Enough of that!
Fezzik, are there rocks ahead?
If they are, we all be dead.
No more rhymes now, I mean it!
Anybody want a peanut?
Ah! We'll reach the cliffs by dawn. Why are you doing that?
Making sure nobody's follow us.
That would be inconceivable.
Despite what you think, you will be caught. And when you are, the prince will see you all hanged.
Of all the necks on this boat, Highness, the one you should be worrying about is your own. Stop doing that. We can all relax. It's almost over.
You're sure nobody's follow us?
As I told you, it would be absolutely, totally, and in all other ways, inconceivable. No one in Gilder knows what we've done, and no one in Florin could have gotten here so fast. Out of curiosity, why do you ask?
No reason. Suddenly, I just happened to look behind us and something is there.
What? Probably some local fisherman out for a pleasure cruise at night through eel-infested waters. Whoa! Go in! Get after her!
I don't swim.
I only dog paddle.
Ah! Veer left! 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 Do you know what that sound is, Highness? Those are the shrieking eels. If you don't believe me, just wait. They always grow louder when they're about to feed on human flesh. If you swim back now, I promise no harm will come to you. I doubt you'll get such an offer from the East.
She doesn't get eaten by the eels at this time.
What?
The eel doesn't get her. I'm explaining to you because you look nervous.
I wasn't nervous. Well, maybe I was a little bit concerned, but that's not the same thing.
Because we can stop now if you want.
No, you could read a little bit more if you want.
Do you know what that sound is, Highness? Those are the shrieking eels.
Look past that, Grandpa. You read it already.
Oh, my goodness, I did. I'm sorry. Beg your pardon. All right. Let's see. She was in the water. The eel was coming after her. She was frightened. The eel started to charge her, and then...
Put her down! Just put her down!
I never get tired of that scene or any of the scenes from Princess Bride. But, Carlos, a question to you. Greatest scene?
Well, here's the thing. I think that Princess Bride is eminently quotable and referenced. It's almost like there isn't a moment or a line in it that you can't reference back to, and everybody knows.
Yes.
I chose this scene because I think if you wanted to understand everything that happens in this film, it's all right there, and it's in the correct amount of time for our time slot.
Yeah, it's curious because when you told me about this scene, I thought this is not one of the iconic scenes.
No.
We don't have any Carrie Elwes in it. We
Nope.
don't have any of the sort of the
We don't have the
iconic things.
I mean, the sword fight scene.
Exactly.
The like we mentioned
Yeah.
in our throw to it. We mentioned the
Right.
the drinking duel with the Sicilian.
The tall Burning Man.
We
or
don't
any of
have
that
the
stuff.
the classic Inigo Montoya line.
Yes,
But
yes.
the thing here is that it encompasses the adventure, the comedy, the fantasy element, because we have the shrinking eels, because there's a little bit of this magical fantasy element, and we have the inclusion of Peter Falk as the grandfather reading the story.
Yes.
Which is our, framework of the
Yeah.
whole thing. So I felt like this scene communicated the movie as a whole
Yeah.
better than some of the other scenes I looked at. And, sometimes it's nice to be reminded of one of the lesser reference scenes. Although the rhyming is in there, and that's something people always do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you also talked about the Peter Falk aspect.
Right.
He and Fred Savage, who do this wonderful, just a little interplay. It's unapologetically sweet in throughout areas of this movie, throughout most of this movie actually, especially in the scenes between Peter Falk and Fred Savage.
Well, that comes from the story behind the story of The Princess Bride.
Tell us that.
Is that William Goldman, very successful Hollywood screenwriter, he says in numerous interviews that his grandfather would read him from a history book when he was growing up, but make up stories within
he made
the real history book.
See, I never heard that part of the story.
At least that's part of the way it's been communicated as the
Interesting.
folklore behind how
Sure.
he came up with his story. And then William Goldman wrote The Princess Bride as a book to sort of absorb and kind of create a more cohesive story out of what his grandfather was doing. And as a little bit of a postscript to that, William Goldman is on record as saying that this film and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were the two films that lived up to what he wanted when he wrote them.
Oh, interesting.
That they live up to what he had in mind when he wrote that script.
Interesting.
So they I don't know if he ever mentioned another one later, but as of the time of the interview I read, Princess Bride and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid were the two that lived up to what he wanted in the film.
Right. And there's something about this film, and as I said a moment ago, it's excuse me, unapologetically sweet. I think the films for me that work the best, pretty much across the board, are films that aren't afraid to do what they set out to do. Like a slasher film that doesn't hedge, like they really show the gore. I'm not a big slasher film fan, but if it's going to be sentimental, be sentimental. That commit to it. And this is what I always tell acting students, or even my own students in any class across any walk of life, which is, if you want to do what you do best, commit to it.
Right.
Don't hold that little bit back. And here's Rob Reiner really committing to this and making his characters a bit cartoony and sweet. And even Robin Wright, who's in her first major film role, or maybe first film role at all, I don't remember if it was the first major, but certainly the first major, who went on to become the Ice Queen of House of Cards, is this very sweet, believing in love princess, and just fabulous characters and acting jobs by everybody.
Well, the acting across the board in this film, like you said, commit, under the concept of committing, all the actors commit to some really well fleshed out, well delivered characters.
Even
and
Billy
down
Crystal
to, and I was going to say, down to the smallest characters, from Miracle Max to the albino, to the priest who's doing the vows.
Marriage.
Yeah.
Peter Cook.
Peter Cook. They bring in Peter Cook.
Yeah.
I mean, to do like what, 8 lines?
Yeah.
They were not. They weren't messing around. They were
Same
like,
man and wife.
We're
man
taking,
and wife.
we're taking every moment of this seriously.
Yeah.
But we're taking it seriously, and we know that it's a comedy, and we know that it has heart, and it's a love story.
Yeah.
But we're not messing around. We're getting the best people for these roles, not the biggest faces.
Yeah.
The best people for these roles.
And get them to commit to it. And one last shout out
Sure.
to Mark Knopfler, who composed the score for this. Mark Knopfler.
Oh,
You would
okay.
know Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits,
Okay.
who wrote Sultans of Swing and a lot of
well,
other things.
That explains all the synthesizer.
That's it. Very 80s synthesizer type of score. But Mark Knopfler did the score, and I believe it was his first major film score.
That's
and,
interesting.
and hit it out of the park. Very, very sort of stuck in the 1980s
It kinda
synthesizing.
is, but there's something about it that...
But a very pretty guitar sort of
Yeah.
love ballad that he wrote for it. Anyway, so shout out to him and all the others. So that is all the time we have for this segment of Greatest Scene Ever. Greatest Scene Ever. Be sure to check out these films in their full length. They're always much more enjoyable that way. But for now, I'm Greg, he's Kylos, and this is Greatest Scene Ever.